Welcome back to the college football playoff predictions for week 6. And let's get started with our rankings. At number 25, we've got Kansas State, who stays in place after a good week for them. Then number 24, moving up into the rankings, is Tulane. They got an overtime win over a Cardiac Houston team that's been to overtime 3 times. Of course, the only reason that Tulane is in here is because they beat Kansas State already a couple weeks ago, so that was a great win as Kansas State has been appreciating as a team. The AP poll had Cincinnati in, but I don't really understand that logic since Cincinnati clearly lost and never really even had a chance against Arkansas in their first game, and the AP poll is going to take Arkansas out just because they lost to number 1 Bama. I mean, I don't really understand that, but number 23, we move on to LSU, who's been very strong this year. Obviously, they have that one loss to Florida State, but other than that, they've looked very strong. They could have even won that game to Florida State, so I think 23 is definitely fair. They welcome Tennessee into Death Valley this weekend, so I think they have a good chance in that one. Number 22, we've got Syracuse, just a 5-0 ACC team right now. They've got a win over Purdue on their resume. Haven't really played too many games away from home, so we'll see what happens with this Syracuse team moving into the meat of their ACC schedule. Number 21, another ACC team, Florida State, drops about a spot after that loss against Wake Forest, which was a tough one, but I really think Wake Forest is a good team. They'll have a chance to bounce back with a game against NC State this week. Number 20, we've got Washington State, was able to finish off Cal easily for the cover in our betting locks. Please check those out for this week in the top right if you haven't already. And they play at USC this week. We've got another lock on them. Number 19, UCLA moves into the rankings after a huge win over Washington, and they would play number 14, Utah, with Cam Rising and co. So that will be a great game. We have action on that one as well. Just further incentive for you to check out the betting locks. UCLA looked great with DTR and Charbonnet. This is an electric offense. We'll see how that defense fares. Of course, they had that close game against South Alabama early in the season, but we'll have to see what happens. They definitely have the tests going down the road in what looks to be a strong Pac-12 this year. Number 18, moving into the rankings, is TCU after blowing the doors off of an Oklahoma team that is floundering right now. You do not see them in the rankings. They get a test against Kansas. Obviously, that is college game day. Number 17 is Kansas, who will play number 18 TCU according to my rankings. Jalen Daniels has been great for this team, and I am looking forward to see who comes out of this game next Saturday as the winner. Might be into the top 15 or even lower in the rankings. So moving into the middle 8, we've got NC State after that brutal loss against Clemson. It was close at the beginning. NC State never really had a chance to win that one, so they drop here. But again, 2 teams looking for revenge. Florida State, NC State next weekend. That should be a great game there. Number 15, BYU continues to take care of business. They've got Notre Dame this week, another chance for a big win for them. Then we've got number 14, we've got Utah, as I was saying before. Cam Rising and co. will visit UCLA in a tough game in LA. Number 13, Kentucky obviously suffered the loss against Ole Miss. There were a number of things that prevented them from winning that game. The kicking, the fumbles, it was terrible. Will Levis got his finger dislocated. I really think Kentucky should have won that game. If they're at home, they definitely win that game, but they've got to shore up that kicking unit, a bunch of other things. I'm not dropping them too much down because I really felt like they could have won that game, and they've got 2 easy games coming up, so we'll see what happens. I have a feeling, though, that both Ole Miss and Kentucky might be a touch overrated right now, but we won't really know until they play other top-tier competition in the SEC. Number 12, we've got Wake Forest coming off that great win over Florida State on the road. Wake Forest is really a top-tier caliber team, and after we saw Clemson wipe out NC State, that really makes me appreciate more that Wake got into double overtime with that team and almost won that game. It really hurts me to this day, but number 12 is Wake Forest with the loss. the second highest one-loss team on these rankings. Number 11, we've got Penn State. Continues to take care of business. It was looking a little sketcy at Northwestern. Low-scoring game. I'd like to see Penn State turn up the offense again, but they played very good up to now in the season. They are 5-0. Number 10, USC stays the same as last week with another win over Arizona. The same thing tends to be true with this USC team. They have a very potent offense, top 3 in the nation, but the defense is a little lacking. I don't think that Arizona State game really says much about them. We'll see what they can do with a ranked Washington State team this week. Number 9, we've got Oregon. Took care of a Stanford team that has typically given them trouble over the past few years rather easily in Eugene. So we'll see where they go from here. I think things could be looking bright for Oregon with Bo Nix finally playing up to his potential. Number 8, we've got Tennessee. They were idle last week. Nothing really to say on them except for the fact that they have a brutal game at Death Valley. LSU, ranked on ranked matchup next week. We'll see what happens there. Number 7, Oklahoma State, one of the big gainers this week. Got that win over Baylor, and I will say that Baylor was the one team that I couldn't rank, so call them 26 receiving votes, top vote getter. So that was a great win for this Oklahoma State team and Spencer Sanders. We'll see what they can do from here going forward. They've got to be the Big 12 front runner, as the 4 teams from the Big 12 that are ranked in both my poll and the AP poll are not the teams that were initially in the poll besides Oklahoma State. So I think they have a bright path going forward, this Oklahoma State team does. Number 6, we've got Ole Miss, obviously coming off that great win over Kentucky. The offense was a little suspect. That game was a bit sloppy. I feel like this could be an overrating of them, but they have a great strength of record right now, obviously undefeated with that marquee win at home. They'll have 2 pretty easy games, and then they'll get into the meat of their SEC slate. We'll see if Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin's offense can keep it up there. Number 5, we've got Michigan. Played another pretty easy game at Iowa. It's always a tough place to play. It was not really in doubt at all, so that was a quality win for a Michigan team that has remained undefeated through their first 5 games. Number 4, we've got Ohio State, and their game wasn't really in doubt either against a poor, at best, Rutgers team. So we'll have to see there. They've got a loaded offense, and the defense has been great as well. So we'll have to see what happens from here on out with Ohio State. Of course, the 2 games they're circling in their schedule are that Penn State and Michigan game. Those are the only other 2 Big Ten teams I even have ranked. So it's a bit of a down year for the Big Ten, but we'll have to see what happens. Number 3, we've got Clemson making the big jump after back-to-back top 25 victories, 1 on the road and 1 at home. It was an impressive win against an NC State team that I formerly had at 9. So big win for Clemson. Congrats to them, and they move into the college football playoff projection right now. Number 2, Georgia moves down a spot after that close game with Missouri. I think that was a bit of a wake-up call for this Georgia team. As Kirby Smart said, it's always tough to play on the road in the SEC, but I really did not expect that out of 30-point favorite dogs. And this might show that Georgia really does have a weakness. I don't know what that week 1 game against Oregon was, though, when they blew them out. Maybe Oregon just is not good, and maybe that's how much better the SEC is than anyone. But we'll have to see what happens going forward. Of course, Georgia remains blemishless, so we'll have to see. Finally, we've got Alabama at 1, advancing 2 spots after they really beat up Arkansas. Arkansas never really had a chance in that game. It was 4 points, but Arkansas was really getting everything to go their way. Alabama looked really strong. Their rush game was very impressive. Of course, there is concern without Bryce Young in the lineup. How long will he be out? It looked like an AC joint problem, so obviously Cam Ewers can tell you about how long that can take to recover from. So Alabama could be on upset alert in a couple weeks here, but for now they remain the number 1 team after that dominating performance. Let's move on to the New Year's 6 bowl predictions, and the college football playoff remains the same. Our only differences that I will highlight in these bowls is I switched out Ole Miss and Tennessee Sugar Bowl for Orange Bowl, and I also kicked out Kentucky, so that's why Ole Miss is there. Kentucky was in the Orange Bowl last week. We just swapped them with Tennessee. And then Wake Forest joins the Orange Bowl over NC State, as obviously they took Clemson to double overtime and rebounded with that win over Florida State. And, of course, we put Tulane in the Cotton Bowl over Cincinnati last week, as Tulane got a great win over Houston. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to comment your predictions below.